Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to rewind all the way back to 2024. Looking back at all the big stories and unpacking exactly what happened, we've got a mountain of sources ready to go, from quick news summaries to deep dive articles, and we'll be pulling out the key facts and insights you need to know. So,
Yeah. Get ready for some wild political twists and turns, some serious conversations about climate change, and even some lighter moments from the world of sports and entertainment. I may even have some trivia sprinkled in there for you, so buckle up and let's get this deep dive started.
yeah, 2024 was one for the history books. A lot happened, that's for sure.
For sure. Let's kick things off in the political arena. The 2024 U.S. presidential election. What a nail-biter. Trump had a roller coaster of a year. He survived an assassination attempt in July, was found guilty in that hush money case back in May. And then what does he do? He wins re-election in November, a second non-consecutive term. It's incredible. Do you happen to know who the only other president to ever pull that off was? Grover Cleveland. Back in the late 1800s, Trump's victory really goes to show just how unpredictable American politics can be.
It really does. Then on the other side of things, Biden steps down in July, and we see Kamala Harris step up as the Democratic nominee. Sadly, she ultimately didn't win,
Right.
but still a huge moment.
Absolutely. The first female nominee from a major party. A huge step forward.
Okay, so let's move on from the political battlefield to, well, the battlefields courtesy of Mother Nature. 2024 saw some devastating hurricanes. Helene and Milton really slammed into Florida. Helene alone took the lives of nearly 250 people, and it really just reminds us of the sheer force of these storms. Plus, remember that report from the World Resources Institute? They said that 2024 was officially the hottest year on record globally. Climate change is very real, and we're already seeing its impact.
Yeah, those hurricanes were a wake-up call for a lot of people. And the WRI report made it clear that even a small temperature increase like 3 degrees Celsius could be devastating. Imagine major cities dealing with extreme heat waves and water shortages all the time.
Exactly. And then there was that volcano in Iceland, Sendinukar. While thankfully not as destructive as the hurricanes, it just adds to this picture of a planet under pressure.
It all ties together. Our planet systems are all connected.
Right. Sadly, it wasn't just natural disasters. There were some other big tragedies that hit the U.S. this year. The Baltimore Bridge collapse back in March was just awful. A ship collided with the bridge, causing part of it to collapse. 6 people died.
A really tough one.
It is. And investigations are still underway. But it really raises questions about our infrastructure, especially how vulnerable it is as it ages, and if we're doing enough to keep everything safe.
And this wasn't the only incident that had people concerned about safety. Back in January, we had that Alaska Airlines incident. A Boeing jet had a mid-flight panel blowout. Luckily, no one was hurt, but it definitely had people on edge.
Definitely. And of course, we can't talk about tragedies without mentioning the ongoing issue of gun violence. The school shooting at Appalachia High School in Georgia was a horrific reminder. 2 students and 2 teachers lost their lives.
It's just heartbreaking, and it underscores the need to find real solutions to gun violence.
Okay, so before we go any further, let's take a little break from the heavy news and jump over to the world of sports and entertainment. How about those Kansas City Chiefs taking home the Super Bowl L8 trophy? Back-to-back champions. Do you know the last time we saw that?
I think it was the Patriots back in '04 and '05.
That's right. A dynasty in the making, maybe? And while we're talking sports, Caitlin Clark's WNBA debut was just electric. She brought a whole new level of energy to the game. It's great to see women's basketball getting more recognition.
Agreed.
Sadly, though, the music world lost an icon. Liam Payne passed away after a fall from a hotel balcony.
His music touched so many lives.
It did. And on a completely different note, Sean Diddy Combs was arrested on some serious charges, sex trafficking and racketeering.
Yeah.
It really shook up the entertainment industry.
Definitely brought up some important conversations about accountability, especially in industries like entertainment where power dynamics can be so complicated.
Yeah, it did. All right, so that wraps up our look at some of the biggest stories in the U.S. from 2024. But don't go anywhere, because in part 2, we're going global. We'll be unpacking some of the major events that shook things up around the world.
It's a wild ride. Make sure you're ready for it.
That's right. But before you head over to part 2, why not hit that like button and subscribe to My Mind Mashups? That way you'll never miss another deep dive. We'll see you back here soon for part 2. Until then, keep those minds curious.
All right, listeners, welcome back to our 2024 Rewind. In part 1, we covered a lot of ground in the U.S., but now it's time to broaden our horizons. Let's go global.
I'm ready for takeoff. Where are we headed first?
Let's start in the Middle East. Syria saw a major power shift this year. Bashar al-Assad's regime, which had been holding on for so long, finally collapsed this past December.
Wow. I remember seeing those headlines about rebels taking over Damascus. It felt like a turning point. But what does this mean for the future of Syria? And what about the surrounding region?
Well, Assad's fall definitely opens up a lot of possibilities. Some good, some potentially not so good. On one hand, it could be a chance for the Syrian people to rebuild their country and create a more democratic system. But there's also a risk of increased instability and violence as different groups fight for control.
So it's a really delicate situation, a lot of uncertainty. And what about the role of other countries in all of this?
It's complicated, lots of different players with their own interests, regional and global powers alike. Everyone is watching to see how things unfold. It's like a high-stakes game of chess.
And speaking of geopolitical chess matches,
hmm
what about South Korea? I read that President Yoon Suk-yeol declared martial law.
Yeah, things have been pretty tense in South Korea for a while now. Lots of political turmoil and division. Declaring martial law was a major escalation. It definitely raises concerns about the future of democracy there.
It seems like both Syria and South Korea are facing uncertain futures. Definitely situations to watch closely. Okay, so on a slightly lighter note, how about those Olympics? Paris 2024 must have been quite the spectacle.
The Olympics always bring so much excitement, and this year was no different. Simone Biles continued to dominate in gymnastics. She actually became the most decorated female gymnast of all time.
Wow, that's amazing. What other Olympic stories stuck with you?
There were a few. Raygun, the breakdancer from Australia, was incredible, really innovative moves. And then there was Yusuf Dikek, the Turkish shooter. He got the nickname the Muffin Man because he always ate a muffin before competing.
I love that. The Olympics are full of such great stories. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about technology and healthcare. One of the biggest developments this year was the growing conversation about using AI in healthcare.
Yeah, AI is definitely revolutionizing medicine. We're seeing algorithms that can diagnose diseases, personalize treatment plans, and even develop new drugs.
Yeah, it's incredible. But it also raises some big ethical questions, like how do we balance the potential benefits of AI with things like data privacy, algorithmic bias, and unintended consequences?
You're right. It's a crucial conversation we need to have as a society. We need to establish ethical guidelines and regulations for AI in healthcare to make sure it's used responsibly and for the benefit of everyone.
I completely agree. Now let's move on to the business world. It was quite the roller coaster ride for many companies. Some big shakeup scandals and some positive developments too. One of the biggest stories was the shooting of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson.
That was a tragic event, a reminder that gun violence can affect anyone. And it raised important questions about workplace safety.
And then we had the arrest of Sean Diddy Combs on charges of sex trafficking and racketeering.
Another story that really shook things up. It highlighted the need for greater transparency and accountability in the entertainment industry, especially when it comes to protecting vulnerable individuals.
And speaking of the entertainment industry, the documentary Quiet on Set really shined a light on the exploitation and abuse that child actors often face. It was a powerful and disturbing film.
It definitely sparked important conversations about systemic change and how to better protect young people in the industry.
Absolutely. But let's not end on a completely negative note. The WRI highlighted some positive developments too. Small-scale farmers in Brazil are actually playing a key role in reviving parts of the Amazon rainforest. They're using sustainable agricultural practices to help restore the land.
That's great to hear. It shows that economic activity and environmental conservation can work together.
For sure. It gives me hope for the future. But with the potential recession looming and President Trump back in the White House, there's definitely a sense of uncertainty about what the future holds for the global economy.
We are living in interesting times, that's for sure.
Okay, well, that was a whirlwind tour of global events.
Yeah.
It's clear that 2024 was a year of both challenges and opportunities. And it's amazing to see how interconnected the world really is.
Agreed. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from this deep dive. The choices we make and the actions we take have ripple effects. They can be felt all around the world.
Now, that's something to think about. But let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back for the final part of our 2024 recap. We still have some fascinating stories to uncover.
Make sure you stick around.
And while you're waiting for part 3, don't forget to like and subscribe to My Mind Mashups. That way you'll never miss a deep dive. We'll be back soon.
Welcome back, everyone, for the final part of our 2024 deep dive. You know, we've covered a lot of ground so far: politics, climate change, global affairs. But for this last part, I thought we'd take a step back from the big picture and focus on some of the more personal stories that came out of 2024. Stories of resilience, kindness, those little glimmers of hope. Because even in a year filled with challenges, there were still those moments that reminded us of the power of the human spirit.
I like that. A little bit of feel-good news after all the heavy stuff. So what heartwarming stories did you find?
Well, let's start with a little love story from the world of sports. WNBA stars Dewana Bonner and Alyssa Thomas announced their engagement this year.
Oh, that's so sweet. They're teammates on the Connecticut Sun, right?
That's right. They've been a force on the court together for years, and now they're taking their partnership to the next level.
I love it. Talk about a power couple.
Absolutely.
And speaking of inspiring athletes, did you hear about Mikal Bridges, the NBA player who still dreams of being a teacher?
Oh, yeah, I read about that. He actually took a day off during the season to teach at a school in Brooklyn.
I love that. Like he's proving you can be a star athlete and still have other passions.
Exactly. It's inspiring to see someone following their dreams.
It is. Okay, this next story is just incredible. Remember Ed Dwight, the man who was supposed to be America's first black astronaut back in the 60s.
Oh, yeah. What a story.
He finally got his chance to experience space this year.
At 90 years old.
It's never too late to achieve your dreams, right?
Never too late.
His story is a testament to perseverance and never giving up.
Absolutely. He faced so many obstacles, but he never lost sight of his goal.
Okay, so shifting gears a bit,
Mhm.
have you heard about Lynn's story, the retiree in Texas, who became a real-life guardian angel for her community?
I don't think so.
She started giving free rides to people in need, like driving a woman battling cancer to her treatments and helping a visually impaired man get around town.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's such a simple act of kindness, but it makes such a huge difference in people's lives.
It's a reminder that we can all make a positive impact.
I totally agree. Now, this next story is really close to my heart. A mom in Pennsylvania opened a cafe specifically to employ people with disabilities, including her own son, who is on the autism spectrum.
Oh, wow.
The cafe is called So Much to Give, and it's all about creating a space where everyone feels valued and can contribute their talents.
What a beautiful idea. A perfect example of inclusivity in action.
It really is. And speaking of creative solutions, did you hear about that elementary school in California?
Mm-hmm.
They projected images of treetops onto the ceilings of classrooms that didn't have windows.
No, I didn't hear about that.
It's a really cool way to bring a little bit of nature
Yeah,
indoors.
especially for kids who might not have access to green spaces.
Exactly. And lastly, I have to mention Judge Frank Caprio, a heartwarming judge who went viral for his compassionate approach in the courtroom.
Oh, yes. I love his videos.
He had a tough year battling pancreatic cancer,
I didn't know that.
but he beat it.
That's wonderful news.
He's such an inspiration, always so positive and determined.
It's a reminder to never give up hope.
It is.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up our look back at 2024, I think it's clear that it was a year of incredible highs and lows. But through it all, we saw the best of humanity shine through.
I agree. We saw people coming together to support each other, overcome challenges, and make the world a better place.
And as we move into the future, let's carry those lessons with us. Let's remember the power of kindness, compassion, and resilience.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So that's it for our 2024 Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey. We hope you learned something new and maybe even felt a little bit inspired. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe to My Mind Mashups. We've got a whole universe of knowledge waiting to be explored. So come along for the ride. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those hearts open.